Alright, you bastards, this is Some-Belgian-prepper, and today I want to make amends by testing out something that I used to believe but I have now doubts about. So, oh yeah, before we start the video, if you're interested in detective stories, this is the first part of an 11-part series. Look into the description if you're interested. Alright, so uh, I used to say that a tampon could be a very good thing to stop bleedings. Um, yeah, in a way it can, but only if you open it up, roll it open, that you have a piece of cotton and you press it onto the wound and put pressure on it to stop the bleeding so it starts to clot. So that's a way you can use it for bleeding, but uh, it came to my attention by a few other preppers that this might not be the case with stabbing and gunshot wounds. So that's why I'm going to test out today, so you can see for yourself, and that we can test it for once and for all if it's a good thing. Well, first of all, I'll yeah, you know what? Let's do the test. We'll see. The problem is, if you have a severe wound like a gunshot wound or a stabbing wound where you would say that you put the tampon in, yeah, the imagine you're left bleeding, you're bleeding on the floor, you just got stabbed, or you just got shot. First, you need to have a tampon. Where the if you're a woman, you have more chance of having a tampon in your back than a guy. So that's our first problem. The second problem is the moment you got shot, you're in panic, you're in stress. Most people do not react at well to it if they see when they are being stabbed, when they have been stabbed or shot. So imagine uh, taking the effort of going to your back, taking the tampon out, try to pry it open, and then shove it into the wound, which can cause more damage in if I because a shot depends on what caliber. If it's there is a certain size that there is needed, because like you can see these are two different sizes of tampons, but if you're shot by 22 you will not plug a tampon like this in. I don't know if I got the 22 around here, but imagine uh, imagine putting a whole finger into a bullet wound that is only 4.5 millimeters big. So yeah, that is furthering causing damage in the first place. So that's already not good. The second thing that could be a problem is it would be faster if you would just put your hands or a piece of cloth from the clothing onto the wound and put pressure on it, and that way you can stop the bleeding. And it's faster, it's more intuitive. So yeah, those are already good reasons for that a tampon is not the best suitable for stabbing and gunshot wounds. So let's try this out. Um, Here's the first problem, opening it. Like you can see, this is one of those smaller ones, and yeah, like you can see, this is already a problem. These products are usually packed very tightly because they must be sterile before use. And imagine if you have a gunshot or stabbing wound, you're full of adrenaline, the stress, you cannot think clearly, and you have to do a little exercise like this. If you do it like that, perhaps. Ah, crap. Now it's all torn up. Yeah, imagine this doing this while there is still a gunshot or a violent situation going on. So that's already a first problem with this. So it finally got open and I bled to death. So imagine putting this inside of a gunshot wound. If you can see already, if you perhaps can see, all these fluffers, imagine those getting into the wounds and start to infect before you start to get to professional help, and they cannot see this and they start to help you because all these little fluffers, yeah, they will be staying behind in the wound even after cleaning out with water, and yeah, these things could get infected. So let's see, if you imagine that is your wound, and let's see what this will. I will let it soak in very nicely. I think it's now at its top. So yeah, imagine if you are being shot by 9 millimeter or a .22, this would not be very suitable. And especially with this type of model, because if you can see clearly, it has a little hole in the middle that goes through it. So even if there is a gushing wound, it could still escape through this, not only through the tissue, but also through this hole that is in the middle for some reason, which is unknown to me. So yeah, that's already a problem. So yeah, and if you remove it, if it expands inside of the wound and you remove it, then you have the problem that you can open up open up more tissue that can be torn and cause even more bleeding, or rupture the when the blood has been clot and you rupture it out again, it will start to open again. So it's more risk than putting pressure on the wound, then the blood starts to clot, and that way yeah, you could prevent such a mess. So yeah, so we have a second tampon, second model. It is one of those that you push in. So that the what some people have with the idea with these ones is that you shove this in the wound and you press the tampon inside of the wound like that. And yet again, that could face a problem, because if you see what a hole, unless you're being shot with an AK-40 with a 7.62 millimeters, yeah, you will not get this into a wound of a 9 millimeter or a .22. So yeah, that's already a big problem. So imagine, let's test it out. Yeah, imagine you're being shot with a 22 9 millimeter, which is the most common, and then you have to get this out of the wound when there is professional help. Not to mention when there the little, like you can see, the little fluffy things that will get so loose. And yeah, that could form a serious infection problem. So in my opinion, if you have a stabbing or a gunshot wound, put pressure on it. Use an Israeli bandage from the videos. Make a tourniquet, improvised, or use one of those TAC if you got them on hand, ready at standby. So yeah, there are alternatives where this could work, but that is a certain type of, how do you say this? I do not know the name of the product, but it's uh, like this little, not really powder, but very tiny little balls that are reacting. They're slurping up the blood and start to expand. But those are in little tiny pellets that you shove into the wound. So the pellets we are not one mass that will expand, but they can flow out with it. So, and these are designed to be less tendency to infect, or they are made of very sterile material or natural material that can dissolve, instead of these cotton that will start to infect if they are left behind into the wound. So yeah, this is just a small video, and I want to say sorry for making 3 videos where I mentioned that tampons could be a good medical hack. And yeah, that is the problem with this kind of knowledge. If you take knowledge from us, from if so many people say this is true, which I did, and I do the same thing, other people will believe this fallacy. And yeah, that could be turned into a severe problem, because if somebody listened to that information, got a serious stabbing or a gunshot wound, and used a tampon and got not the bleeding, not have stopped the bleeding, or they start to get infection, that would have been on me. So I want to say sorry about that. That is the reason why I always like to test things before actually implementing them. So that is a good lesson also for most preppers. Do not take everything people say on the internet or other people that you hear by value, even though there is a certain logic behind it. Always test it out and see if it's feasible to say. So yeah, that is these are actually 2 things that we have learned today. So yeah, I would say subscribe. Thank you for watching. If you who know the name of the powder that they use to stop bleedings, leave it in the comments. I'm curiously about that product. What are the specifications of that? How are they working with infections, or how do they stop bleeding? How sterile are they? And leave it something in the comments if you have any other ideas about this. And one more thing, I do not want to say that tampons are not useful. Always keep tampons in your EDC, your bug out bag, for that special little lady when she has the time of the month. Or like I said, you can use it to rip it open and put pressure on top of the wound instead of inside of the wound. And one more thing, a tampon can also be useful as a sort of kindle of tinder for starting fire. So that's also a good way to use it. So yeah, that's all. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. Cheers. I'm going to drink this.